Okay, it is 6:30 p.m. on Monday, July 1st, 2024, and I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Sturgis Common Council. Our first item is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
That's a first by Mike
I'll second it.
and a second by Tony. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Yes. Those opposed with a no? Okay, we have an agenda. If we could please stand and remove cover for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, up next is announcements and praise. And I would first like to take a moment to praise our Heavenly Father. If you would like to join, please do so. Heavenly Father, blessed be your name. You are faithful and true. Your promises you keep. Thank you for the gifts of your Spirit, the gift of your grace. Send your Spirit to guide us and to help us always profess in word and in deed the faith that you've blessed us with. Give us the courage to always defend those who are weak. In Jesus' name we pray. Come, Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, and then have a number of announcements. Up first, we have the 4th of July holiday. That is this Thursday. So city offices will be closed. Closures will include the Rubble Site, library, and community center. And due to the Thursday holiday, trash pickup for Thursday will be on Wednesday. So if your trash is regularly picked up on Thursday, please remember to get your tote out a day early on Wednesday instead. Then Wednesday the 3rd will be Music on Main and fireworks. So Wednesday will be quite an exciting night. Also, just to let everyone know, we have a tree survey being conducted, and that is starting today and running through, I believe, the 12th. So it's going to be for 2 weeks, July 1st through 14th. It is the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources Forest Division. So if you see people outside with computers and clipboards and taking pictures of trees in the right-of-way, you'll know what that's about. And let's see, and just another reminder about our upcoming council meetings. We will have 2 more meetings this month. Those will be July 15th and July 29th. And then next month, we will only have 1 meeting, and that will be August 19th. All right, and then July 15th is the second regularly scheduled July meeting. And then we will also have one on July 29th. And then the August meeting will just be August 19th. All right. And then I just wanted to take a moment to commend our officers who were in the midst of a dangerous situation late last night, and they handled it without injury to themselves and without injury to the public. The incident was a reminder of the dangers of law enforcement and what our officers are willing to face to make sure that we're all safe. And a direct attack on law enforcement might seem like just that, but it's actually an attack on all of us. When people are attacking those who are keeping us safe, they're making us vulnerable too. So let's please not forget to thank our officers and all of our first responders who put themselves in between us and those who would do harm. They're willing to sacrifice everything every day for us. So that is all I have for announcements and praise. Does anyone else on council have any announcements and praise? Anyone from the public, any announcements or praise? No? Okay, I guess that covered everything. Then up next, we have non-agenda matters that may come before council. So in this section, we invite the public to come forward with any non-agenda related items. Please understand that anything brought forward in this section will not be acted upon this evening. If you would like to address the council, please come forward and state your name and whether or not you are a resident of Sturgis. Please keep your comments respectful and to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sam Monahan. I'm here representing Tom's Teas. And I have a unique question or proposal for you. As you know, that we have a contract with the city of Sturgis for the use of the logo. I would like you guys to take into consideration that royalty money go towards the community center this year, and then for future use, possibly go to like Public Works, Police Department. That way we can kind of see where the money goes. I know that the community center could use a little boost this year. The water fountain issue to get resolved there, so we could bottle fill our hydro flask there. So I guess with that, do you have any questions of me?
Thank you for that, Sam. That's certainly something that we will take into consideration, putting it to good use so that we can actually see where it goes.
Yeah,
So.
yep, exactly. And it's not a huge amount of money, but it'd be something to go towards the community project or department projects.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Sam? All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Chad Owens. I own Owens Interstate Sales on the very west side of Maine. And I have some questions, and I have an issue with the signage and the barricades that are put up right off of 11th Street and Maine, right before you get to Indian Motorcycles, right there. As it stands now, and I have some pictures of it, as it stands now on the street, there are barricades, orange and white ones, with a big road closed sign on it. And right over here, it says local traffic only. Now, the bikes park to each side of the street, so there's a road that goes through there. So technically, the road itself is not closed. My question or my issue is I'm losing a lot of revenue because my building and my business sits just right around the corner on the left side. Because most people seem to think that the road is closed and that they can't get to my business. And I've kind of let it go for the last 3 or 4 years or whatever just to see how it will play out. And my revenues from retail are down significantly.
And so you're talking about rally, during
Yes,
rally? Because you mentioned
sorry.
motorcycles. Okay,
Yes.
I'm like, is that
Just during
signage
the
out
rally.
there right now?
Just during the rally.
Okay.
And I guess I don't know the purpose of the road closed and the signage and the barricades being put up. I mean, in my opinion, they could be taken down and the people would still park right where they're parking right now without there being any issues or basically impacting my business and my retail walk-in customers.
Sure. And you said that was at Main and 11th?
11th. If you know where well, it's right where you take on 11th Street there as it goes over towards Lozelle is where the temporary stoplight is put up.
Okay.
So it's right there, just past that, so everybody can turn right there, but they're discouraging people from going past there unless, obviously you can see Indian directly from right there. The problem that I'm having is you can't see around the corner another block to where my building is.
Okay.
And it kind of on the other end of it where Main goes to Lozelle, you have one lane entrance. And again, there's signage to discourage people from exiting out that roadway as well.
Okay, I'm
So
not
at the-
sure if Chief or Rick have some more information on that particular area. I'm
suspect
guessing
Rick
there's a
probably
reason
would.
for it.
Sure, that was something that we had done. We had approached the DOT years ago, probably close to a decade now, and put the temporary traffic signal at 11th and Lozelle. That was due to we were seeing an increase in accidents, and so they asked us to close the road and not allow anybody to come off of Main and especially take a left-hand turn or a right. They want them to go to 11th Street to that temporary signal. We pay for half of the cost of that, and we've been doing it, like I said, probably 10 years. But that was kind of the solution based on we were having some bad accidents from people pulling out. There's no signal there going across Lozelle Street and then getting hit. They couldn't put the traffic signal there because it's right in the curve, so they had to come down to the straightaway there by Senex, by 11th Street.
Is there anything with the signage that could be different? Like because Mr. Owens was saying that the road is still technically open, but
It's
is
not.
it
The road is
what it
technically closed because you can't go through and out on it.
Okay.
There is a sign there that says local traffic only. I mean, that's how you would sign it.
Okay.
If the council wants to not sign it like that, we can certainly do that, but that's correctly signed that way.
If it's actually closed, then, yeah. So
Because
it's a safety.
you can't go all the way through. The road is closed. And then it's a right only off of Lozelle onto Main Street.
Sure.
So, but by that, local traffic only would allow those people to drive down this road around the corner
Yep.
too?
That's local traffic, yeah. Local
Right.
means that you can't get out. You can only go locally.
Right. There's a lot of confusion with I guess if the road is closed, then the road is closed. But people are seeing that, they're not seeing the rest of it. I mean, I get lots of phone calls that week saying, we can't get to you, we can't get to your store.
The signs are the same size. The local traffic and the road closed are the identical signs, side by side.
Well, it's costing me business. But
Sorry, perhaps there's something that,
I mean, I'm
know that you can do
flexible.
for-
I'm not saying take the signs down, let's do
Right.
that. I'm flexible. If there's any way we could could we put an additional sign up there or something that says that we're open?
like,
Yeah,
for
you
your
can- we can-
business, I
If you
mean.
get us a CarQuest sign or whatever, yeah, we can put it on there.
Put it up there that says local traffic, but we're open?
Yeah, I don't have your sign, but if you get
Yeah.
me one, I can put it on there, absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe, hopefully that would help.
That would help,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah. People don't look that close, they just see, ooh, road closed, Ooh,
Right.
can't get there,
Okay.
so.
All right,
that
well, that's
be-
a start.
Would
So-
that be acceptable to you, Chad, to try that?
I'll try it, I mean, really, I don't know what my choices are. That's kind of why I was here, to see what kind of choices I may have besides just this.
Yeah, I would say.
Come on up, Bonnie.
Bonnie Alberts from here in Sturgis, and I'm with you, Chad. I am through there all the time, every week. Yes. I am through there all the time, every week. I have a storage unit back there, and I go to Owens, and I loop around the corner and on out, and during the rally, I have had the same perception. I go out on Lizelle and in from the other side, which I consider hazardous to my health and well-being, but that's what I do because I thought I couldn't go straight through. I did not see local traffic, it didn't ring that bell with me. So I understand what you're saying, and I think your perception of what's happening is accurate, because I did it too. But I
Yeah,
go
thank
out
you.
on Lizelle Street and then back in to get there and think, every time I do it, I think, this is dumb and dangerous.
Yeah.
And then I do it again.
Oh,
Oh,
yes, right there.
that's helpful.
Oh, perfect.
So could the block sign be like in line with the street so it stops them from turning the corner back out onto Lizelle at that intersection?
And I understand the no access to Lizelle from Main Street. I mean, I do get that because we've witnessed some accidents from people turning out there with all the traffic coming, especially if you try to go left there. I mean, it's next to impossible. That one I get. The one that I have the issue with is the other side. You can see right where 11th Street is. You can see that last black arrow towards the south there, and then to your left a little bit. Yeah, just down below. No, keep going. Right there. Yeah, it's just right 10 feet to your left there.
Okay. Well,
Right, and you cannot see that from right where that block is.
no, I definitely am with you and Bonnie that those local traffic only signs can be confusing to people. So hopefully if there's a sign then that says your business name, people know that they can follow that sign and access you
Yeah.
with that. So
Okay, so
Maybe we
basically I
can-
just need to get Rick a sign and we can get that put up and see what happens.
go from there. Yeah. Hopefully
Okay.
that'll help.
All right.
Thanks
Sounds
so
good,
much.
thanks.
Is there anyone else with any non-agenda matters? Come on out.
I'm sorry, I have one of my own for another Sturgis resident who called me tonight and asked me to ask the question. She lives in that Nellie Sherman Street area and has heard from neighbors that there are plans to widen Sherman. She's kind of wondering what's going on, if there is a plan to widen Sherman, and how does she find out about that? And I said, remember, that neighbor is not always accurate, but is Sherman Street getting wider someday?
So that, yeah, that's one of those major projects that we're not sure when it'll happen, but it's down the pipeline. Rick, what'd you say?
And I don't remember, it's been so long since I've looked at the plans. I don't believe the road itself is getting wider, but there'll be, the project that we're looking at is resurfacing, curb and gutter, storm drainage, resurfacing the street, adding sidewalk. So I don't think there was never any intent to widen the right-of-way, so all of that stuff will fit in the right-of-way. So I don't believe that the road itself is getting any wider, but you will have, we'll be getting rid of those big dips in there and putting in storm, pipe storm sewer, sidewalks, new curb and gutter and paving, but
So
that-
improvements.
yeah, that project has been pushed down the road a bit now on the capital improvement plan, so,
Are we talking years down the road, or?
yes.
Okay. Well, she lives on that corner where you had the nasty
Water break.
water main break,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep, okay.
And her property drops off.
Right.
So if you're cutting into it, it makes an even sheerer
Right.
drop. So
Yep.
just said I'd ask for her. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, Kevin.
Rick, while you were up, I had a chance to tour around a part of the Moose Drive service road today. We had a public utility do a bunch of work there recently. You know, our ordinance is that the adjoining landowners have to do their right-of-way maintenance, but they left so many rocks and so much of a mess there that it's kind of hard for them to maintain. And this is not city staff. This is
From, are you talking about Dolan Creek going north?
primarily from Dolan Creek going south.
South.
Along the service road. And then again over against our Marcotte property. I mean, I don't think the city could even maintain our own property over there, and it was the same utility company.
Sure.
Is there something we can do about that? I mean, what's our,
Let me get with Dave and look into it. I don't ever, most of the time, and I call them too all the time because, a lot of times it's in our right of way and we're mowing it. I don't get those permits, so I don't know when they're doing that work. And public utilities they do have some ability to go in and do their work without a whole lot of oversight from the city, but let me see what I can do. I know what you're talking about.
yeah, I mean, my understanding of the ordinance is they're expected to leave it as they found it.
Right.
And they certainly haven't done that for our residents and even for the city staff.
Sure.
Thank you.
Let me get with Dave and him and I'll get it, and I'll have something to report back to you at the 15th.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else with any non-agenda matters? Okay, I guess up next, the agenda says informational reports, which we have none, which would bring us to mayor's report. And item 7.1 is an item regarding the applications received for the vacant Ward 3 seat. The period to submit applications closed today at 6 p.m. So we should now have all those applications that will be considered. And we received applications from, I believe, 4 individuals, from a Christopher Peldo, Don Lanfear, Francie Ganji Severson, and Rochelle Brook. We have Rochelle Brook, Francie Ganji Severson, Don Lanfear or Lanfer. Don, D-O-N, and Christopher Peldo. So that appointment for that Ward 3 seat will be made at the July 15th meeting. So council has some time to look over these applications, and on the 15th, we will hear from these applicants. And come on up, Bonnie.
Will the public, particularly the people of that ward, have any access to the applications, the qualifications, or characteristics of those individuals?
I believe that these should be posted with the agenda packet. So that's what we normally do. Normally, the applications will be in the agenda packet.
So they won't be visible then until till Friday in 2 weeks. That doesn't leave any time for those people to communicate
All right.
with the council as to what they would hope for their ward.
Or I guess under maybe someplace on our website, we can list all of the applicants and with their
I would think that would
information,
make
just
more
like we
sense
did.
to give them a little more time to consider that and communicate with counselors.
Sure. And so, thank you, Bonnie, for bringing that up too, that anyone in Ward 3, if you do have any questions that you would want asked of, any questions will be asked to all of the applicants, not any one in particular. Please get in touch with your ward representative to ask those questions for you.
Do we have time to get that in the SIP?
I don't know when the next SIP goes out, yeah.
But they only have,
So,
Jim, right?
anybody, but I mean, if there's a question,
Communicate with any
yep,
board member.
sure. I mean, particularly you would want the Ward 3 people, but anyone here on council can ask them questions, so. All right. Well, then with that being done, up next, we have a sales tax update from Adam and then some payroll items. Okay, go ahead, Adam, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the sales tax update for general 2% sales tax, sales in the month of April 2024 were 6.06%, higher than March of 2023, or April of 2023. Sales for the first 4 months of 2024 were 3.25% lower than the same time period in 23. January through April represented 25% of the total sales in 23. For the tourism or triple B sales tax, in addition to the 2% general sales tax, an additional 1% sales tax is charged for all alcohol, hotel, restaurant, and similar sales. For the month of April 2024, these tourism-related sales tax were 8.87% higher than April of 2023. Sales for the first 4 months of 2024 were 1.54% lower than the same time period in 2023. January through April represented 20% of total sales in 2023. We are trending a little higher this month in April, so that's a good. Hopefully we keep improving. And any questions from council?
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
Adam, I sure appreciate the new formatting that you're presenting this information on. It makes it easy to read and make comparisons against our previous years and see what our trends are more effectively. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Good news on the increase in
I
April
agree.
for sure.
Any other questions for Adam regarding the sales tax report? All right, then, with Lisa not here, Adam will run through our payroll.
Perfect. So for payroll, we are hiring a new softball umpire. We will also be paying for the rally firefighters and the July 4th firefighters. We are hiring some new ambulance staff, and then we are also adding some volunteers for the off-road rally. Any questions with the payroll?
Questions for Adam? Okay, thank you, Adam. And that brings us down to the consent agenda. Here we have some minutes, law enforcement agreement, another armory lease, and then some public hearings to be set. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone from council would like to see removed for discussion?
I'd like to pull 8.3 for some discussion, please.
Okay, 8.3. Anything else?
A date clarification on 8.4 that I want to make sure that everyone's aware of.
Okay, so we got 8.3 and 8.4 to be pulled. Is there anything that anyone in the public would like to see pulled for discussion? Okay, is there a motion then on the consent agenda?
Move to approve
With those items?
the omissions of 8.3 and 8.4.
Okay. That's a first by Kevin and a second by Mike to approve the consent agenda without 8.3 and 8.4. All those in favor, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Those opposed with a no? Okay. So that will bring us to item 8.3, and that one is the consideration to approve an armory lease. And I don't know if Tammy is not here. What questions did you have?
Sure. So my questions are surrounding dates on the Armory lease paperwork. Mainly because it says that under the leasee agrees to pay, it says the second half is due by June 1st, 2024. But we've got the date that the applicant signed this on June 24th. And so that's an area of concern for me that the dates are off. And so does that mean all of the payments are going to be due as soon as this gets signed by you, or?
Sure. Adam, do you know if we did they maybe even pay already? You don't know. Okay, without
I have
Tammy being
not seen
here.
it come through as of yet.
Okay. I think we still have some time. If we were to wait on this, table it, I think it could, if we table it, it would come up at the next meeting, so that would be time for them. That's up to you. I mean,
Oh, do I have to make a motion for that? Or, okay.
if you
Well, I would-
want to either table it or
I'd like
whatever
to
your
table
motion
it.
would be.
I'd make a motion to table it till the 15th so we can get some answers, please.
Okay. So that is a first by Ruth to table item 8.3. Is there a second?
Second.
And that is a second by Jesse. All those in favor of tabling item 8.3, approving that armory lease, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Those opposed with a no? Okay, that is tabled and will come up at our next meeting. Which brings us to item 8.4. And this is consideration to set a public hearing for July 15th. I believe it was just some issues with the dates on this one, kind of like the last one.
Yes, Mayor. On the staff report, the agenda item lists that the public hearing is on July 17th, which is a Wednesday. And I don't think we're setting a special meeting for that, so for clarification purposes, we need to make sure that we
Okay,
identify that this is the 15th.
certainly. So we will make sure that this will actually be a public hearing on July 15th. All right.
And with the date correction, I would move to approve.
Okay, that is a first by Kevin to approve item 8.4 with the date correction of July 15th for the public hearing.
I'll
There.
second it.
And a second by Tony. Any further discussion from the public? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Those opposed with a no? Okay, that correction was made. And that brings us down to the claims. Are there, oh, I do have one addition to the claims. There is one bill that needs to get paid for $1,620. And that would be for one of our billboards. And that would bring the total claims from $331,313.05 to $332,933.05 for the total claims. This would fall under sponsorship, so I don't have claims in front of me. Adam, do you know what page that would?
Who's the vendor on that?
So this is the Epic Outdoor Advertising. Are there any other questions on the claims? I'm looking while I'm asking.
It would be page 6. It's not on there. She's adding it to it, though.
Yeah.
So Adam, we also need to add $75 to the finance office. Is that correct?
That is correct. Well, for the Cassell program.
Yeah, the Cassell program, there's 3 payments spread out amongst various departments, but they're for the months of May, June, and July. But the July rate raised by $75, and Adam indicated that that $75 would be fine to be obligated to the finance office. So their bills were $1,887 a month. In July, their charge for Cassell went to $1,962 per month, a change of $75. So in order to move the claims forward accurately,
So then we need to add another. Get your trusty calculator out, or has Adam already factored in the total?
it's on several pages, Bonnie. It's under the finance office, which is I'm looking at the individual document, not the packet number. So what, page 3?
Cassell. Oh, that's wastewater.
May I, Mayor?
Yes.
The new total would be $333,008.05.
Okay. Total claim $333,008.05.
Correct.
Great. With an addition to page 3 and 6.
Mayor, if there's no further questions, I'd make a motion on this.
Okay, that's a first by Kevin
Well,
to approve, or?
I would clarify that the claims as listed with the addition of $1,620 to Epic Outdoor Advertising in the sponsorship budget, and $75 to the finance office for Cassell, for a total claim amount of $333,008.05.
Okay. First by Kevin with those corrections.
I'll second.
Second by Ruth. Any further discussion? Any questions from the public on the claims? Okay, we'll go ahead and roll call this. Tony,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
and Kevin.
Yes.
Okay, those bills get paid. And that brings us down to our public hearings. Item 10.1 is consideration to approve a transfer of a retail liquor license from Low Country Oysters of Sturgis LLC to GMB Services LLC. And we have Adam, the report on that.
You've already said it. This is just a transfer from Low County Oysters to the Sturgis LLC to GMB Services. Any questions from staff or from council?
Questions? Any questions from the public? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
That's a first by Tony
Second.
and a second by Mike. Any further discussion from the public? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Those opposed with a no. All right, that is approved. On to item 10.2. This one is consideration to approve a retail malt beverage and SD Farm wine license for Golden Crest Meadows, and that is Brewberry Bistro. I won't make Adam say anything since I said it all. Are there any questions about this? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
That's a first by Tony,
Second.
second by Kevin. Any further discussion or any discussion? Questions, comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Those opposed with a no. And that is approved. I'm not sure where this is. Do you know?
Massaberry building.
Oh, the old Massaberry building.
Did you hear that, Bonnie? The Massaberry building.
My same reaction. Okay. That brings us down to item 10.3, and this one is consideration to approve Resolution 2024-42, approving a street closure request by AFTE, and that is for Sunday, August 11th for the Sturgis TT race, and we have Rick here with a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Up for consideration is the approval of Resolution 2024-42, which is approving a street closure request by AFT Events for Sunday, August 11th, 2024 for the Sturgis TT race. This closure would be from 2 a.m. until 11 p.m. On Sunday, August 11th, 2024. Those roads included in the closure are on Main Street, beginning at the west boundary of the property at 1305 Main Street, which is the Loud American property where the Jack Daniels tent is, that very west boundary. Continuing east to the intersection of Harley-Davidson Way. On Harley-Davidson Way, beginning at the alley right-of-way located between Lizelle and Main Street, and continuing south to the intersection of Harley-Davidson Way and Sherman Street. And then on Sherman Street, beginning at the intersection of Harley-Davidson Way and Sherman, and continuing west to the intersection of Sherman Street and 4th Street. On 3rd Street, beginning at the intersection of 3rd Street and Howard, and continuing north to the alley right-of-way located between Lizelle Street and Main Street. The map is a little confusing. It does not show that road closure goes all the way out to this intersection on Sherman and Harley-Davidson Way in front of City Hall. That yellow line is actually showing more so the track layout than it is the road closure. Just for clarification.
Rick, I see that we're closing Sherman Street all the way from 4th Street to 3rd Street in front of the Erskine Administrative Building.
Correct.
And also 3rd Street south of Sherman Street. And there's quite a few residences there.
That'll be a local traffic only. The reason we suggest closing them that far is because if you get up there with a bus or a camper or a pickup pulling a trailer, there's nowhere to turn around.
Is it reasonable to put motorcycle parking only signs up? Because of the track, we're losing quite a bit of downtown parking. Does that matter at all?
Are you asking if the city can do it or if AFT would do it?
Well, we're not closing. Can you scroll to the north on the map a little bit, Deb? In front of the Loud American, we're only closing Main Street down to essentially in front of the Loud American, so we must be doing a U-turn there with motorcycles.
That's what we have suggested to them.
Well, it seems reasonable to try and keep as much parking in the downtown area open as, rather than have it sitting empty.
So if that's the case, then we would need to amend this resolution to indicate on that section of road motorcycle, if that's what you're asking, motorcycle only is different than a road closure.
Any others in council think that we need the parking, or is it best to leave it?
And we kind of talked through this, and given that it was a Sunday, we didn't really necessarily see any issues with it. Something to certainly gauge and watch and put something in play for next year, but I don't think that it necessarily is going to be that big of an issue this first year.
I have a question. Does AFT need that space on Sherman that he's talking about to move back and forth to the track at all?
No, I don't believe, again, that was more of because if you start down the intersection of Sherman Street. There's nowhere, I mean, if, like I said, if you get a trailer or a motor home pulling a truck, there's nowhere to do a U-turn. A motorcycle could do a U-turn, but anything larger than that, you're gonna really struggle.
Chief, do you see any issues with first responders on this? Are you okay with this? Okay.
Just a comment. I've been here a long time and I do not ever remember a closure on Sherman. So this will be a test.
And this is just for the race time?
Correct.
That's
This
6 hours roughly?
this would be the Sunday.
But it's going to be closed all day.
Day.
2 a.m. to 11 p.m.
So Sherman's gonna be closed anyway, right, for the race. We're just
Correct.
taking another block so that
Asking,
vehicles don't,
we would be asking people to turn left or right at 4th Street.
which they're gonna have to do anyway, or
Right.
they're gonna be stuck.
And that's the purpose of closing that block down, so they don't get down there and then have nowhere to be able to turn around.
So it'd be like again, a local traffic only.
Correct. Which on Sunday, I mean, you got a couple of, I think one residence and then the county building will be closed anyways.
Deb, can you scroll out just a little bit, please? What do we have on Love Inc. and?
Love Inc. and that, the one house in the center is what you have, and then the apartment is actually accessed off of Howard most
I
of
was
the
going
time.
south there. You have Love Inc. and what is there, 2 homes?
Two homes there. Yeah, I mean, I guess, as long as we're not cutting off access to those, I don't personally see a problem with it.
Hearing no big objections, I move to approve.
That's a first by Mike to approve Resolution 2024-42, approving the street closure for August 11th.
I'll second.
And that is a second by Ruth. Any further discussion? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Those opposed with a no. Okay, that resolution is passed. And that brings us down to reports. Item 11.1 is consideration to approve a request for use of city property by AFTE for the Sturgis TT Racing. And also some special event associated activations. And Rick can go over that with us.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a follow-up to the previous authorization. This is the consideration to approve the request for the use of city property by AFT Events. AFT Events is requesting to be able to add material to the alley running east and west behind the First Interstate Bank. Talking through them, they figured anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of dirt to be placed on that particular section, which wouldn't necessarily impact or inhibit traffic to be able to still flow through that alleyway with our garbage trucks or with any delivery trucks. In addition, plans will be in place to move fencing and barriers to allow for that open traffic flow during the intermission times of the race or when there's downtime where they're doing track maintenance. They've also requested to install a timing loop on Main Street at the start-finish line. That's in the third block of Main Street. Temporary removal of 2 stop signs for rider safety, one on the southeast corner of Harley-Davidson Way and Main, and the second one is on the northeast corner of 3rd and Main. The use of the southern end of the city fairgrounds for staging. This will happen July 29th through August 14th. This will include permission for storage of crowd control panels as well as dirt. The use of Harley-Davidson Rally Point for opening ceremonies, trophy presentations, live music, and other race-related programming from August 10th from 3 to 11 p.m. and on the 11th from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Permission to park up to 30 fully contained rigs in the city long-term parking lot. This is the parking lot that is north of the Public Works campus. This will be August 6th through August 12th. Permission to park the merchandise trailer in Harley-Davidson Way right-of-way. This will be adjacent to the Oasis Bar on the 11th. This includes a 10 by 10 foot pop-up tent for a local charity to be announced. Waiver of the vending license fees for all of AMA Pro's merchandise trailer and that pop-up tent. The use of the city bleachers, that would be 6 sets of bleachers for August 11th. And the use of city-owned parcel 1.71, 12.01, which is the southern half of the First Interstate bank lot that's directly to the west of us. City owns half of that. FIB owns the other half of that. And then some exhibitor and demo activations at the LifeSpring Church from August 1st through August 12th. This will be additional garbage totes and possibly some smaller 90-gallon totes to be determined. So with that, we'd open it up for any questions the council may have for those requests. And Cameron is here as well that can help answer those.
Thank you, Rick. Does anyone on council have any questions? It's quite the list, so if anyone has any questions about anything.
I'd like to hear about the cut on Main Street for the timing loop.
What specifically?
Are we cutting 4 inches?
It'd probably be closer to 2 to 3 inches. They'll cut a groove in there is what they're requesting. That's not my first option. If it's the only option, that's what we have to do. I would like to entertain looking at, our RF chipped GPS, something like that. I think if we can avoid, anytime we cut into our streets, it's not if, it's when it's going to create a problem. It's going to deteriorate over the course of the winter through the freeze-thaw cycles, getting salt and chemicals down in there. If that comes up just a little bit, when we plow the streets, we'll hit it and we'll start to degrade that. So it's not the ideal thing to cut into your streets like that, but if it's the only option, then that's why it's coming to you guys.
My concern as well.
I would say that, good evening, everybody, Madam Mayor, council members, that this is something that our CEO, Gene Crouch, has dealt with for many, many years. He sent a report over, a pretty thorough report on what the kind of material we put in there. Definitely coming from Colorado, I understand where Rick's coming from. We all do. And, we did sign the, Gene did sign the addendum there, or with the contract that, if anything happens, any damage or anything from us, we will make sure it's fixed. I don't know if there's really any other way that we can get timing. This is going to be a tight race. It's going to be close racing. We're going to have people that are going to be, within inches of each other going across that finish line. So, again, I'm not the expert at this. Our CEO, Gene Crouch, is very in tune with this through many street races and racetracks that he's done over 20 plus years. But as Rick said, we will definitely work with them and explore any and every option we can and understand definitely where the city's coming from.
So my understanding of what you just said, if we did cut in to the road and put in the timing loop and something happened after the winter, then you would help us fix it? You would
Yes, and if
manage
you,
that?
on the last page of our agreement, it specifically lays out that any damages
Right.
caused by ours, whenever that comes up, that we must pay for that and signed by our CEO. And Gene did want to mention that he's planning to come out here at the end of the month for the Jeff Stanton Adventure Bike deal out here. So, he would get with Rick in the city and kind of really walk through the process and what we're doing, again, while exploring any other options, as Rick said.
I'm assuming it's a braided cable.
It's just a regular electric. It's the same thing that we use on our traffic signals for detector loops. Generally, you put them in before you pave. They go in a conduit.
We're not gonna pull it out and put it back in.
No.
Okay.
No, once it goes in, short of it getting pulled out, if it would happen to get pulled out, like I said, over time, even just from snow removal, we're gonna pull the caulking out. And again, if you got water in there and it froze and the line comes up and then we plow, there's a potential to hook it, but at that point in time, you put it back in.
Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, my question would be more on the installation of that. I understand what you're talking about with the cut of the asphalt through the middle of the street. But how do you manage the terminations? I mean, the conduit or whatnot has to come up. So is it going to daylight against the curb or in the sidewalk?
Yeah, there wouldn't be any conduit. This will just be a cut wide enough to put the electric cable in.
So it'll have to be done next year again. Same thing.
Could possibly.
I mean, we probably aren't going to be able to expect a cable that's just
No,
laying
if
in
it's
the
sticking
street
up
gutter.
out of the curbs, it'll get hit. I mean, it'll get pulled. And like I said, when we plow snow, that likely, because you're not going to go through the concrete pan of the curb, you're going to catch it and probably pull everything out.
Yeah.
There's not a, by chance, an overhead banner deal close.
The only other thing would probably be an RF chip. And again, right now the Olympics is the big thing, and you see those guys all putting those chips in their suits, and that's what that's doing, is timing.
Of course, they're probably not moving quite as fast as what.
Right.
Some of those guys run pretty quick.
Well, it seems like a termination box on either end of that with a conduit would be the way to make the installation so that it was more permanent long term, so that we wouldn't have to worry about trying to protect a wire, have a trip hazard, have something for the whole rest of the year for this.
And that's something we
timing
could
loop.
look at if you wanted to cut out a wider strip, cut it out, take it back down to the base course, put a conduit in it, and then patch the road. That would be something that would be, in my mind, would probably still be better than having a joint that has caulking in it. I mean, it'd be more of a permanent, but that would require a road closure sometime in the next 31 days
Right, and
to
be a bigger
to be
job.
able to, yeah, way bigger job.
Yeah.
Do we want to get through the first year and see how this goes before we commit to that?
Yeah, because you could cut, right? You could make your cut this year, try it. If it doesn't work, then do the wider cut. But there still needs to be something on some sort of termination.
Yeah, it just seems like we're gonna do that before the rally, so we're gonna have a coil of wire sticking out of the ground there that somebody can get wrapped up into.
Oh, the cut's not going to be made till the day before the race.
Yeah, they're talking about doing this
Doing it
tonight.
overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're prepping.
Yeah, then have our race and then we'll be done.
Then you just pull that back up when you're done.
Yep, seal it off. And again, I wish I could speak more intelligently on this. Gene has all the details and has done this for many years, but again, I know the epoxy or whatever we use to seal it up, DOT certified and all that we have a full report. And I was just thinking, as we were sitting here, it might be good for us to send some videos of what we've done at other cuts. So, the council members could see what we've done at the track and how wide the cut it is. It's probably easier to see than hear it.
Might be a little different though. Is this
Track
the only
in
street
the
race?
street,
It's
We-
gonna
we-
be parking on Monday,
Right.
So, I would have one other question, and that's more about the fairgrounds. Are you talking about the infield of the track primarily? And the only question would be is our softball fields generally use that north end of the softball field or the fairgrounds property for their parking. And so if we put a bunch of dirt on there,
They're pretty much done here. We're getting ready to go July state.
understood, but probably not going to be grassed in by the spring of next
No.
year. And so if it was up against that fence clear to the north end, we'd have a lot of mud there.
And that's not, we're talking about the actual infield, where
Infield,
we can
yeah.
secure it.
Yep, good.
Any other questions?
What's everyone's thoughts of vending from the public right-of-way?
They do it every Wednesday.
Certainly do, good point.
They sell tacos and ice cream every Wednesday night, so.
Point.
You selling tacos?
Yeah.
Sure. I got some mission tortillas for you.
Staff has, I mean, we've reviewed this, like I said, in great detail and are comfortable.
Well, like I said, my only thing is cutting in Main Street, and I say this first year, give it a whirl, and if this looks like something that's gonna keep happening, I say we do like the Kevin's approach. We cut what we need out, we put conduit, we make it more of a for sure fixture, and I can live with a patch better than I can live with a couple cuts. It would probably be a lot better for our climate and what we live with, so with that, I would motion to approve.
Okay, that is a first by Tony to approve this request for use of city property. Is there a second?
Second.
That is a second by Mike. Any further discussion? Questions, comments from the public? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Those opposed with a no. All right, that request passes. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank you.
That brings us down to item 11.2. And this will be another discussion regarding Title VII and the city administrator job description. We had a discussion last meeting about it. We didn't have anything really to look at other than some examples. Mr. Marshall did put together something with some of the examples that we did have, so at least we have something to look at today to begin to work with, to maybe help discussion a little bit. It's pretty lengthy, I think maybe 40-some pages, close to 50 pages. So there's definitely a lot to digest, to read, but this will be another discussion on anything that anyone liked, didn't like. I will open it up. Mr. Marshall, you can please jump in if you have anything to say about how you compiled this. I know you have your staff report in there, but.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Last time we had too little to talk about. This time we have too much to talk about. I think it may be helpful if Council identifies those areas it would like to discuss and break up the discussion into specific areas rather than piecemeal it about the ordinance and the job description and the council rules as a whole. Of course, I am willing to do whatever you ask me to do with this regard. Much of the proposed ordinance came from the materials that Councilor Forrester provided to the council. I picked and chose among those to try and create an integrated document that was written in primarily the same voice and with a consistent use of language so that it would be an aid to interpretation in years to come.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Should we go by chapter, by chance?
We can do that if you want to.
I mean, that might be the easiest way to eat the elephant, if you will.
Sure thing. We definitely need to work at it section by section.
I don't think we can eat the elephant
Is there anything in particular with the chapter 1?
I have one quick question. The top, it says Title 1. Do we mean Title 7 of the attached packet of information?
We can, yes.
Okay.
Is the short answer. This is to be integrated into the book of ordinances as a whole. So, but yes, you're correct.
Okay.
So for me, Title 1 through, or excuse me, chapters 1 through 4 are just the basic ground rules. Chapter 5 is where we would start talking about different changes. And for changes, I do like council meetings. It gives the council the ability to change the time. Our previous ordinance had it locked in at 6:30, so if there's a desire by the council or by the community to fix the time at a different time so it works better, that's very reasonable.
Would you give us a page on that or where you're looking?
Page 11, item 154. A.
11:15.
That's just a good thing. I mean, that's some of the items that, was a limitation in our previous ordinance. 155. Adam, have you had a chance to review that to make sure that is that from our existing ordinance? And I mean, I was trying to follow some of that myself in the legal description of each ward. Are we sure that that's
I
correct?
have not yet, but I will.
What I can tell you, Counselor Forrester, is that was cut and pasted from the existing ordinance book.
Yeah.
So there is certainly the opportunity for some kind of glitch, but that was the process used.
Work smarter.
Right. Well, hopefully there's no error. I mean, it'd be the chance to fact check that one as well. I mean, if no one else has any input, I mean, I wouldn't make any other comments about chapter 5.
I have one comment. Chapter 5, I know that it says it doesn't have a specific time. I think we should have a default time, so not every week or every 2 weeks. We're like, what time is the meeting this week? And then if we want to shift from the default time, then we can have that discussion.
We'd have to change the ordinance to, I mean, if we set a time, then that's the time.
If it says unless otherwise stated,
Is there some
maybe
way-
there's something that can be said like that, Mr. Marshall? Would that hold up?
If we go back to the language of 1-5-4, it says as such hours council may fix from time to time. That contemplates the ability to change the time. It certainly would be helpful to have a default time and say at 6:30 unless determined otherwise by council.
I would
I
like
like
that
that.
because I would
Yes,
prefer to not at the last thing be like, oh, we didn't
We
pick a
forgot to
time.
say what time the meeting was going to be. No,
Right.
that's a good catch, and I think that should probably be in there as well.
I have a question.
Yes, come on up.
Getting later in the night. Before we get very deep, I was getting confused about what constitutes a code, what constitutes an ordinance, what constitutes a resolution, what calls for a code, what calls for an ordinance, what calls for a resolution. Can we have some clarification on those? And then I had another question about the penalty section. I'm not quite sure. It talks about officers and who are the officers and who would be penalized for what. I'm just having trouble imagining how that would manifest itself.
Mr. Marshall, would you be so kind as to answer the legal questions? Difference in code, ordinance,
Certainly.
resolution for Bonnie?
Madam Mayor, a code is a compilation of individual ordinances, so, which are further grouped by titles. So the code constitutes the entire book of ordinances. I believe we have 39 titles in the current 39 chapters, 39 separate provisions of the code that are subdivided. An ordinance is a law of more permanent duration that is passed after 2 readings and publication. A resolution is more temporary in nature and typically continues until is changed unless otherwise provided. For example, some ordinances specifically, or rather some resolutions are year to year only, and they would be resolutions granting signing authority, resolutions fixing compensation for city employees, the resolutions you typically adopt at your first meeting in January of each year.
Street closures.
Street closures, they're limited in time more so than an ordinance is.
Did you need any more clarification, or did that kind of answer? Okay.
It's not just for me, you know,
Sure.
when I ask the questions,
Sure, sure.
but yes, that was very helpful.
Okay.
And then,
The penalty section,
Yeah,
who it's referring to as far as officers.
yeah, let me see if I can find my way back to.
While you're looking, Bonnie, officers are identified in the ordinance. They consist of department heads. The Director of Communications and Public Outreach, the Finance Officer, myself, Public Works Director, Liquor Store Manager, the Rod at the Community Center, Lisa in Human Resources. They are identified by title in the ordinance. Everyone else is an employee.
So to whom does the penalty apply?
If you could direct my attention to a section you're asking
What
about.
page are you on, Bonnie?
Sure, make it tough. Well, I'm looking in, okay, I'm reading 1.4 and the general penalty of $500 or 30 days at jail. Which actually sounds pretty good.
Bonnie, what page are you on?
I'm
Oh.
on page 7
Okay,
or 9
thanks,
and
Kevin.
27 or 90 and 100.
Okay,
Poison.
thank you. Got it.
That's where the 1.4 starts. And that, so it's the general penalty, the application of provisions, and then the liability of the officers, which looks like it's with 5, but it's really with 4. It's from the page before. That says no officer is liable for fine or penalty for failure to perform. Okay, that, I was having trouble hooking that up with above. I was thinking of moving on to the next one. So that was my bad. And then I just touched something and made it all go away. What page did I tell you, 47?
90.
Thank you. These touch screens, you get too close and they just go.
So that paragraph 141 establishes that if anyone violates this ordinance, that's
That's correct, Counselor Forrester, and it's violation of an ordinance within a code. So, for example, if you maintain a nuisance, the city can violate your nuisance violation, and it would be subject to a penalty not to exceed $500, 30 days in the county jail, or both a combination of fine and jail time. So anything that is specifically prohibited within the code is subject to the general penalty. And that isn't a penalty that's imposed upon officers or employees for failure to do their duty. That is a penalty imposed on the general public for violating an ordinance. Much as the matter involving Sturgis Meats could have been processed as a civil violation, that too would be subject to the general penalty clause. In our current code, some, but not all, of the matters that can be pursued as a misdemeanor are identified separately within the sections. And I say some but not all because the code has been adopted over time and there is inconsistency in drafting. So some draftsperson saw fit to include that as a penalty while others didn't. Sort of clear as mud, but that's generally how a general penalty clause works.
Thank you.
So the consideration becomes, do we want to have this kind of a penalty applied to all of our ordinances? Or do we currently have some variation in there that is purposeful? I don't know. I mean, haven't read all the ordinances because I didn't think about this until we're thinking now, but
There's
Do-
about 5,000 pages of ordinances.
yeah, so I haven't read them. Confession. But do we want this level of penalty consistent across all of our ordinances, or do we want to take the time to think about that and maybe not? That's my question. But not that we have to decide that now. We're just talking.
I mean, my first thought is that when you're creating laws, there needs to be some kind of consequence for breaking them or not following them. But
Well, and
That's my
not-
first
That's not
reaction.
saying it will be $500. It's up to, right? So there's some variation. You know, could be whatever, a
Yeah.
$100 penalty or a $200 penalty or.
I think it's
That penalty is a penalty for a Class 2 misdemeanor. The city has no authority to charge anything more serious than a Class 2 misdemeanor. And it would be up to the local magistrate judge to determine what specific penalty is imposed. So you would prosecute the Class 2 misdemeanor, and Judge Callahan would impose a sentence, and he could impose no fine or a fine of up to $500. He could impose no jail time or jail time up to 30 days, or he could impose jail time of up to 30 days and suspend some jail time based on considerations.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we already have something, like we currently have something in Title I that speaks to general penalty anyway, so this isn't new.
This is not new. It is an attempt to create greater uniformity if there has been an oversight in drafting of what could be enforced criminally. And it is, well, dog at large tickets. Those can be prosecuted as a Class 2 misdemeanor. They can also be pursued as a civil penalty. You have an option if council is interested in going through the offenses offense by offense, and you could deem some of them as petty offenses. And a petty offense is one which is subject to a $25 fine and nothing more.
Or you just plead to a seatbelt violation.
Yes, that is the primary petty offense.
So who makes the decision on the degree of penalty?
Please pardon me in advance because I'm going to get technical. The penalty is imposed by state law, Class 2 misdemeanor. Anything that the city charges is a Class 2 misdemeanor. The sanction, the punishment for violating a Class 2 misdemeanor would be up to the local magistrate judge.
So the actual sentence,
The actual
pretty much, if
sentence.
you look at it that way.
When you say the local magistrate, it goes to court?
Yes, that's the only way you get a criminal conviction.
Are there alternative consequences that aren't criminal convictions?
Yes, there are. There are many ordinances that have civil penalties.
But this just says that all of our ordinances have the potential for criminal.
It does not say that.
Okay, I'm asking. I wasn't saying, I was asking.
It does not say that.
Okay. We'll scoot over to chapter 6. All right. And again, this is all just discussion where this is all going to pop up again, and there could be stuff that people are reading through this later and come up with more ideas. I mean, a lot of us just saw this, for the first time a couple days ago. So really, this is our first real discussion at something in front of us. So.
In 5, are these wards the current designations of the wards?
Yes, they are.
Any questions, comments from chapter 6?
Definitely.
Go ahead.
The first page of chapter 6, page 13 of 47. 161B, number 2. The word for an indefinite term, I think that needs to either reflect the mayor's term or be an annual, 1 year. Another comment for chapter 6, page 14 of 47, area 162, the bottom paragraph. It reads, "The mayor, with approval of the city council, must establish by resolution a more precise organizational chart implementing the chain of command described in this ordinance." And I think that that would be better to be done, a chain of command and organizational chart through the budget ordinance annually. I mean, we're approving the number of full-time positions, the makeup of the departments, the budgets for each. And so as part of the annual appropriations, that would be best, in my mind, to have that through the budget ordinance. That's the only comments I'd have for Chapter 6. 162.
Just a question, I guess, going back to your 161B2. Does this allow room for, or would there not ever be any contracts then with any staff? Because then if people have a contract, that makes a difference too on an appointment. If they're signing a contract, they could sign a 3-year contract, a 5-year contract that then wouldn't be affected. So would this ultimately get rid of any use of contracts? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Several years ago, a case called Lynn versus Patterson was decided from the city of Sturgis. And in that case, the Supreme Court determined that under the aldermanic form of government, the ability to fire an employee is vested in the mayor, and the council cannot condition that. So if council were to say that they would be hired for a term of years, that would not be binding on the mayor, because in the ranking of priority, state law controls over a conflicting ordinance. A contract may fix other terms of employment, but it cannot supersede the mayor's ability to discharge.
So saying then pretty much if there was one mayor in office who hired someone and signed a contract with that employee, and then someone else came in, that new mayor could still fire that person regardless of the contract.
That is correct.
So,
Contract, I'm not imagining what you mean by a contract with an employee, other than their job.
That's exactly right.
yeah, what their salary is and how long they're guaranteed to work, type of thing.
Okay, you're not talking some auxiliary contract to,
No, I think we have 2 contracts just now. Is that
Currently, only myself and
Eric?
Eric Miller have contracts.
Right.
Previously, Faye had a contract. I think you would anticipate having a contract with your city administrator. Whether council is open to the idea of contracting with department heads is a policy question, and I have no opinion on that.
But would that contract not even matter though with the city administrator? Because wouldn't if it was a different mayor than who signed the contract?
It would matter as to everything but the ability to discharge them. The contract, for example, could state the terms and conditions of employment, hours that you work, to whom one reports, a code of conduct.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I still believe that for the term of the mayor would be the best way to write that, even though, as Mr. Marshall pointed out, that the state law, that aligns things with the state law and makes things clear for the layman that's reading that, in my opinion.
I will offer this comment only for what it's worth, and that is one of the differences between a strong mayor style of government and an aldermanic form of government with a city administrator was the ability to have enforceable contracts, or what appeared to be enforceable contracts. And without those, it may be more difficult to recruit and keep the level of department heads that you want, because it introduces an element of instability. Whether that is what council desires, I have no opinion on.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's something to consider. Hold on. Anybody else have any questions, comments under chapter 6, or anyone in the public? Move on to 7.
Before you dive into 7, I believe 7 was adapted primarily from the ordinances from Brookings.
Brookings?
Yeah, that is my memory,
Mitchell.
but
City manager.
Mitchell?
Spearfish? One of the suggestions in your,
Thank you. Did you have anything in chapter 7?
I guess I have a question on 7. Let me get back to it.
We did have one question in 6 about the surety bonds.
What page are you on?
I wish I knew.
94 of 128 or page 11.
Okay.
It said something about certain individuals having to provide a bond, oath and bond. C, post a surety bond in such sum as required by state law.
Go online, can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
Please, thank you, right up to your mouth.
Okay, I'm talking about 1.61C, the surety bond in such sum as required by state law. And who would that be? Who would have to provide a surety bond, and who pays for that?
May I, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
Typically, the city finance officers, employees in the finance office, and the city attorney, as well as the mayor, have surety bonds. Those bonds are designed to protect the city from embezzlement on behalf of those individuals. Those bonds are typically paid for by the city itself.
That answer your question, Bonnie? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Sure.
You had a question in 7.
171, where it says the city administrator appointment, it reads, the mayor may appoint a city administrator for an indefinite term. Shouldn't it read with the consent of council?
It certainly may change that, yes.
I would like to see that.
Could I add, that's also the same as 161B2, where we were talking about indefinite, but tying it back to the term of the mayor. another Chapter 7 comment if nobody
Yep.
else has.
Jump in. Anybody jump in with stuff.
Page 14, page 16 of 47. Item 175, authority to approve expenditures. We've had some issues about not knowing about contracts and what the cause and effect has been for rally contracts. I'd be interested in something that said except for rally contracts in this. I mean, I understand that $25,000 contracts happen all the time for different projects in the community. But when it means bringing in a certain type of sponsor or required city action, I feel that rally contracts should come before the city council.
And so even, you're saying everything under that 25,000, even, just
All
everything.
rally contracts.
Do we know how many there are on the average?
I
I
don't.
May, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
Specifically with regard to Councilor Bashan's question, the answer is no. We don't know that right now. And with regard to Councilor Forrester's question, would your concern be addressed by saying all rally sponsorship contracts must be approved by the city council? Because this line item talks only about approving expenditures.
Expenditures, contracts, or agreements on behalf of the city.
So you would prefer it to say, have a second sentence that refers specifically to rally contracts?
That seems reasonable to me.
And by the same token, licensing agreements, because they're of a similar nature and are revenue sources of which council should always be aware.
As the legislative body, yeah, having the council involved with the understanding the finance piece is paramount. I don't have any other Chapter 7.
Kevin's done in Chapter 7. Anyone else have anything in Chapter 7? Public? Coming up, Amanda. You've been following the chapters? Okay.
I just noticed maybe a little bit of clarification. So on Chapter 6, Chapter 6, 1-6-1, it talks about all the different positions that are appointed. And then Chapter 1-6-2 in the middle, it talks about the department heads are directly accountable to the mayor. No individual alderman or group of aldermen has the authority to direct the actions of a department head or any subordinate employees within the city. And then if you go over to Chapter 7, where it starts talking about the duties of the city administrator, specifically like 173 items A, B, F, G, and N. If I'm reading this from the perspective of somebody who wants to apply for this position, it's unclear to me whether or not the position supervises any of the employees within the organization. Does that make sense? So when I read it as the powers and duties, the position would have authority over employees, but then the statement in 1-6-2 says to me that those positions report to the mayor. And maybe that's cleared up someplace else. It was just a little confusing reading it from that perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it might be because the city administrator reports to the mayor, and so it kind of flows like that. But can you clarify, Mr. Marshall?
I can comment on the general intent and apologize for my failure to implement it. But it is intended to be that the city council does not have the ability to direct department heads or employees. Department heads have the ability to direct employees, and the city manager is responsible for the general supervision of all administrative affairs. That's the intent. Yeah, I see I may have fallen short of it in implementing it.
It's a little unclear. Just trying to look at it from an outside perspective looking in so it's clear.
Yes, thank you for catching that. Okay. We want to tackle chapter 8.
We have a couple typos in 172. Just to note that they're there so they get fixed sometime.
Gonna tell us what they are?
Administrator and qualifications. And there's a missing herein in 1.162. But I presume those things will be sieved out when you get to finally doing the documents.
I generally don't like to use herein because I don't think it adds clarity.
But it was in the next, it was part of that sentence.
I try to eliminate them every chance I get.
Thank you. Well, this is not even close to any kind of final draft, so. All right. Chapter 8. This one all about you, Deb? Well, I see communications and outreach.
Okay, there's no IT department on that list though, as well.
That's primarily because we currently don't have an IT department. What we have is
Elisa.
a Jane of all trades. And we certainly can include an IT department head, but right now it is, in some sense, handled on a case-by-case basis by contracting with, I can't recall the name of the person.
Double star.
Yeah.
Her department is called Administrative Services.
So rather than human resources, it would be administrative services. Could you cover HR and IT in that? Page 15 or page 17 of 47, 181, item C. I think it would be useful to, if we have department heads, to identify that under the general powers and duties, each department head is responsible for their budget management and expense oversight. Example, all claims for that department should be entered by that department. They should manage those, be provided the information and manage their budget as they work through the year. I mean, obviously the city administrator would be working with them, but making sure that they have the knowledge, then that if they're responsible, that they're signing off on the claims that are coming out of their budget is important. As far as the financial end of that, though, the list that we pulled off of, and there was a whole lot in both Mitchell and Brookings as far as the financial end. And primarily annual inventories and the way the budget's put together. I'm not sure which piece, but it appears to me that Chapter 8 is where it would be put. The Brookings Ordinance, Section 4.03 budget indicates the budget shall provide a complete financial plan of all city funds and activities for the ensuing fiscal year, and except as required by law or this chapter shall be in such a form as the city council may require. The budget shall begin with a clear general summary of its contents, shall show in detail all estimated income, indicated and proposed property tax levy, and all proposed expenditures, including debt services for the ensuing fiscal year, and shall be so arranged as to show comparative figures for actual and estimated income and expenditures of the current fiscal year and actual income and expenditures of the previous fiscal year. It shall indicate in separate sections, and it goes on to more detail of proposed goals, but that's a more transparent budget process, and I would push very hard to have more information on our budget. Including monthly summaries, not unlike what our school board in our community does. Mead 46-1 provides a great monthly snapshot of their financial situation, expenditures and revenue.
I would agree with that, and having something like that in place, especially given that looking at this, we're looking at 12 department heads, and so 12 different people responsible for their budgets. And if we have a consistent process for each person putting together their budget and presenting it, then that makes it a lot easier on the city administrator. And in the meantime, I guess that the mayor, having consistency across the board would make that a lot easier.
Well, and provides the information to the council as the legislative body. We approve the budget.
Right.
We approve the claims.
Right.
I mean, so that part of it is firmly embedded in the legislative actions. Additionally, besides the financial additions, there is a city attorney piece in the Mitchell ordinance, 1710 in the Mitchell ordinance. I mean, there's no page to refer to, but 1810, page 18, page 20 of 47 in our draft, talks about the legal department. The thing that I like about the Mitchell piece is when we get to number B2 of 1810, B2, talks about other such duties as assigned by the mayor. The Mitchell ordinance reads, other such duties as assigned by the mayor and or city council on terms as shall be agreed to between the city attorney and the mayor and council. I mean, I think that clarifies that the council has legal representation.
Anything else in Chapter 8?
Maybe not Chapter 8, but looking back at 7, just based off of what I see in 8, each one of those we say, hereby the Department of Finance or whatever is established. Do we need to say that with the job, the position of city administrator, that hereby it is established? Because I know looking back at existing Title VII, when it talks about the city manager position, we did say that as well. So I just want to make sure that we're not missing something there.
Is that verbiage?
Well, the
necessary?
manager, that the administrator is, in my opinion, a different creature. That the city administrator doesn't have a department as much as the city administrator has specific job duties. Although if you would like to entertain a design that creates a Department of Administration, it sounds a lot like the department that Lisa is running.
Sure, and I'm not saying that we need to say we're just establishing a department. Just the position. I don't know if we've said that anywhere, if we need to, just looking back on the existing Title VII, when the city manager position was quote-unquote established, we said we established it. It's a phrasing, I want to make sure we're not missing something is all.
Thank you.
I have a question about that 173D and the administrator submits an annual budget. How much of the annual budget is that? Is that the whole shebang? Or are there budget items outside of the city administrator's purview?
They would be working with, probably kind of like it's done now, working with department heads, come up with their own budget, and then that city administrator would work with those department heads to compile all that information that they get from working with the department heads, prepare it all into one form, bring that to the mayor, work with the mayor, and approve it from there. So they would pretty much just be compiling all information that the department heads are each individually giving them.
So you're talking outgo?
I'm talking what?
A spending budget. This is just the spending portion of the budget.
Well, I mean, everything is in the budget, expected revenues and
Okay.
so.
I'm just wondering if the city administrator has oversight on the entire budget, or if there are elements of our budget, income as well as expenses, that are not under the city administrator's purview.
I think
If I may.
Sure.
As drafted, this contemplates that the city administrator would be what we currently call the chief budget officer, responsible for compiling the budget, and the budget includes sources of revenue as well as the expenditures. There is friction in that description because there's a school of thought that says that should be a function of the finance office and not of the city administrator. So there is a policy decision for council about where to vest primary responsibility for those duties. And, to go further down the rabbit hole, if you will, for those cities who use the finance officer in that capacity, sometimes that role is entitled chief financial officer and elevates their status within the structure of government.
Thank you, Mark. That's what I was fishing for.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was not a nuance that I incorporated, but if you want me to, I'd be happy to build that concept in. But ultimately, I need direction about whether council wants it to reside with the finance office or with the city administrator.
Mayor? It seems like the second option there, Mark, provides a dual path of oversight. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
I think you are. I think it has the benefit of creating a city administrator who is more aware of overall city operations on an ongoing basis and sees the picture of integrating it into a more cohesive whole than vesting all of those duties or a substantial part of those duties outside in a chief financial officer. There are pluses and minuses to both designs.
Okay.
I wanted to ask also about the city departments and department heads listed in at the beginning of chapter 8, because in 6.1.1, the appointment provisions, I came out with 14, and there are only 12 in this list. And I see that one is that it appears that Chief of Police and EMS Director are combined on this list into, I don't know if I can find it, Public Safety, so that would take it down one. But there's another one missing, and I'm not sure what it was. That was just an inconsistency, and I saw 812, and I counted 14 over here.
That came about because of the, again, tension between how other cities work with police, fire, and ambulance. Some cities create a single department whose department head oversees those three functions. Others have a police department, a fire department, and a department of emergency medical services. What I gave you was a vision that sort of reflected current practice in that you have public safety departments, that is police and ambulance, but fire is handled differently with what I understand is a contract employee.
Okay. Well, why don't we skip along to chapter 9?
I could offer a little levity if you'd look at 173A. And we want to take a more careful look at that because it actually says that the city administrator will execute the code and the city administrator will execute the employees under their direction and supervision. So, pardon my commitment to the English language, but I don't think we want to do that.
By the same token, there are some documents that I would just as soon see executed as well.
For meeting attendance?
Questions, comments in chapter 9?
I got plenty of comments, not many for this one, but I think we should be adding a nepotism statement in chapter 9. and indicate that we are going to publish our personnel policy manual on our website.
Anybody else? All right. That was our first run through 9 chapters. A lot to think about. I'm sure a lot of us are going to go home and read through all this again. And
Sure. Oh, I had commentary and questions on the council rules
Yep.
that were attached.
let's move on to those, the fun stuff. We all like
Is-
rules.
Yes. So, I understand we already have a 156-page personnel policy manual, and I feel, my opinion, that if this is what we're looking at ratifying as a policy and procedures manual, personnel policy manual, that we should be looking at that 156 pages and making changes to that. I don't know if these council rules are meant to replace that or be added to it, but the council rules, to me, look to speak to something that is a bit separate from this and should be its own separate consideration and agenda item, in my opinion.
So I don't think these were going to be, these would be, I believe the intention is to add them to the policy. Is that what the intention was?
The intention is
creating
to
these.
adopt them by ordinance. The current policy manual goes in several different directions, is internally inconsistent, and often conflicts with ordinance. It's, in some sense, easier to start with a clean sheet of paper than revising those 150, however many pages, for consistency. So the council rules are just a proposal concerning the items contained in it, and they certainly can be considered on a standalone basis or simply discarded as council may.
Would these not be included then in part of the policy? I know it would just be it's completely own document.
It may go either way as council directs. If you want to have them as simply your general council rules, that's one approach. If you want to incorporate them into the policy manual, that's another approach. Whatever council would like to see done, I will do.
I think there's some items within that that should be in the main ordinance. Example would be page 4, page 27 of 47, 1.060, liaison to boards, commissions, and committees. Right now it says the mayor makes those appointments, but under our current ordinance, it's with approval of the council. But we also should list out what boards, commissions, and committees we have.
And
Which-
another approach could be to simply delete this provision from this document.
Because it's somewhere else already. So just repetitive. Gotcha.
Whatever is council's pleasure.
Well, redundancy doesn't help with clarity, that's for sure. Yes, as far as the rules go, my opinion is that would come with for 2 years, we've had a revision of our policy and procedure manual on our council goals. I mean, that was a carryover, so we created that in the late 2022. So it seems like if there was going to be any work on that, that would be done as a complete package rather than a piecemeal.
Well, this could be a standalone too. Questions? Any other comments? All right. Do we want to move on to city administrator job description? Or maybe we don't. All right. And I think this was pieced together from a few different job descriptions. Questions, comments on this job description? Well, I guess for me, there was just one question. I don't know if that's under, where is it? Education or experience? I don't know if some of these things should say and or type of thing. If we're requiring a master's degree in public administration, does the undergrad degree have to be in one of those things too? Or, I mean, to me, the graduate degree would be the important one. I mean, if someone had a undergrad in theology, I don't think I would exclude them, because even though their master's is in public administration, so I just think that just the language in here, we should consider if some of these things should be or, and or type of thing.
I know this is not a final draft, but also under general education and or experience, it says minimum of 10 years progressive responsibility as city manager. Or,
Right.
yeah, city administrator, or.
Right. So I guess we can just look at that and see which, you can either have this or that, or this and that type of thing. Well, again, I think a lot of us are just seeing this actually in front of us for the first time within the last couple days. So there's a lot to look through and digest. So there'll still be some tweaking and questions, I'm sure. A lot of changes that'll still be made. So.
Mayor?
Yes.
Before we move on to the next agenda item, can we talk a little bit about our steps and our timeline and reverse engineering this all from the end of our resolution? You know, it looks like if we were going to have an ordinance in place that was in effect before the resolution expires, given the 20-day.
September 2nd or so you're
Right.
referring to?
We have to have a first reading on the 15th. If we delay a first reading till the 29th, our 29th meeting of July, 29th of July, and we only have one meeting in August, the 19th, then that would make our effective date sometime in the middle of September.
Well, I think it's important to get this right and not rush it. I believe we can extend, Mr. Marshall, correct me if I'm wrong, we can extend a resolution or?
May.
I mean, that, obviously that would be the goal, but as you're saying with that timeline, that's pretty aggressive to make sure that we have this right.
We could also just keep in our toolbox, so to speak, a special meeting earlier in August than the 19th. I mean, I know we have the rally, but the rally's over on the 11th after our race. That's going to be awesome.
Well, I guess that would only be if everyone is comfortable with everything. I mean, we got to make sure that this is right. So if we can make sure it's right by the 15th, then we can go with that. If we can't, then
Pretty fast.
Pretty fast.
yeah, it is.
If I may, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
another part of our ordinance requires the find and replace function on the entire book of ordinances, because city manager appears in more than just Title VII. And it's my intention to do that find and replace and do it by strike-throughs and underscores so that you can readily identify where the term has been found and replaced. Because in looking at it, there are, I think, policy decisions about whether you want to have some of those duties find a home with the city administrator, with the mayor, or with the council. And I simply want you as the policymakers to be aware of those decisions and not have them made just as through the application of a rote program. And it's my intention to have that document ready for you on July 15th as well.
Thank you. Well, any other discussion? Questions? All right. Well, I guess we will end there in that discussion, which brings us to our next agenda item, which would be executive session, which there is a need for, and there is no anticipated action after executive session. So, is there a motion to go into exec?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, that's a first by Jesse,
I'll second it.
second by Tony. All those in favor to go into exec, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Those opposed with a no. All right, we will go into exec in 7 minutes, 8:50.